Hey guys, welcome back to today's video. Today is Thursday, September 17th, 2020, and today we're going to be taking a look at the 2020 Senate election in the state of South Carolina. So the reason why I think that this state is significant is because what we've seen in the past couple of polls that have been released out of this state is that it's narrowing up in the Senate election. Two new, I guess not too new, but since I've covered this race, I guess you could say two new Quinnipiac University polls that have been taken within different time periods, both of which end up with a tied race on the Senate election. Why is this happening? Well, the Democrat there, Jamie Harrison, is consistently out fundraising Lindsey Graham. He's running national ads and local ads that are all boosting his chances at winning that state in the Senate election. Now, Lindsey Graham has never really had a super competitive race. Even in Obama's 2008 landslide victory, South Carolina was called immediately at poll closing, and you can imagine 6 years ago in a Republican wave, Lindsey Graham soared to re-election, which he did when he won the state by 15%. So, this election, what's different? Well, we're seeing increased black turnout, at least expected statewide, and also what we're seeing is that white voters are moving away from Lindsey Graham. They're moving away from Donald Trump in this state. So South Carolina, I mean, we'll get back to the Senate characterization, but on the presidential level is not exactly too safe for Donald Trump. Trump is only up 7.1%, and even at his peak, I mean, even at Trump's peak, he was up 9% at the beginning of the campaign season, 13%, which honestly, him being up at 13% was not too far off what he received in 2016. He got 14% of the vote, so a 13-point victory back in February seemed pretty strong. But now we're starting to see, as the election narrows up for Donald Trump, it comes down to a point where Trump only leads Biden by 7.1%. In the state he carried by 14%. So we've seen a 7-point reduction in terms of the Donald Trump's expected victory over Biden in this state. Even though Biden has a roughly 1 in 10 chance at winning South Carolina, we're honestly not going to see Biden even make a play for South Carolina. But let's take a look at this margin. I mean, Trump won this state, like I said, in 2016 by 14%. Now, based off these numbers, he's expected it to carry it by 8.5%. That is a pretty significant drop. This is very good, I guess you could say, for Biden. Looking at a lot of these southern states move further and further to the left because Biden is able to appeal to these voters. What we're seeing is that on top of increased black turnout across the entire Bible Belt across the entire Sun Belt, actually, is that Joe Biden is improving amongst white voters as well. White suburban voters that landed the Democrats' victories in the 2018 House elections. And looking at South Carolina in particular, it's not exactly a toss-up state. It's ruby red. It's voted with the Republican Party for decades. And it's very difficult for us to see how Biden could win here. But Jamie Harrison is an entirely different story. Because here's the Senate map. We never really talk too intently about South Carolina in particular, mainly because it's a part of this southern region. The only swing states we usually expect out of this area is North Carolina and Florida. But now we've seen the addition of Georgia. We have a competitive race in Alabama, in Mississippi, in Kentucky, in now South Carolina. And South Carolina is being rated as likely on my map. That is, no pun intended, likely to change as we move further. But looking at South Carolina, it really should not be a toss-up race. And I think this is a story the GOP has been getting, been told time and time again throughout this entire campaign season. Because what we saw was an electoral or a Senate map that was super favorable to the GOP. Let's flash back just the beginning of the year. Montana was safe. Kansas was safe. Okay, looking at Mississippi, it was considered to be safe. South Carolina was considered safe. Alaska was considered safe. Texas was considered safe. I mean, looking at these numbers, looking at how many of these Republican states have narrowed down truly, this is super significant. Because also, in the beginning of the year, the Republicans could have made a play for Minnesota. They could have made a play for New Mexico. They could have done something different in Arizona in the beginning of the year. They could have done something different in Virginia. They could have made a play for New Hampshire. But what we saw was the Democratic Party took this map that was not favorable to them by any means. In January, the Republicans were on track to win Senate control and retain it. Maybe they could have lost some seats, but they never expected Kansas to be lean. They never expected Montana to be tilt. They never expected Mississippi to be likely, or Texas to be likely, or Alaska to be remotely competitive, or now South Carolina to be considered likely. probably lean at this point, and to a point where the Democrats have now solidified their leads in New Mexico, solidified their leads in Arizona, solidified their leads in Minnesota, in New Hampshire, in Colorado. And what we're seeing now is that the Democratic Party did very good things with this map. And while they still may come up short in the states of Kansas and Mississippi and Kentucky, they've expanded the battleground map not only for this year, but for years to come. And I will say that this South Carolina, race becoming super competitive puts another state on the Democratic Party's radar for the Senate. Because if you take South Carolina away, in a best case scenario for the Democrats, let's say Harrison wins South Carolina. Let's say Ossoff wins Georgia. Let's say Doug Jones wins re-election. That's a sweep across the South. And that will be proof to the GOP that their grip isn't as strong as it used to be. And obviously that isn't likely to happen. But the fact that Alabama is likely Republican, even with the Democrat incumbent, look at Tom Cotton's race back in Arkansas in 2014. By the way, Georgia, David Perdue should be running widely ahead of where Donald Trump is right now. He's not. Now in South Carolina, Lindsey Graham should be outperforming Donald Trump. I mean, Lindsey Graham was one of the first people in opposition to Trump at the beginning of his presidential bid. But now he's completely backed Trump. He's been defending him nationally. And now looking at the numbers, not only is Trump doing bad on the presidential level, now Lindsey Graham is doing worse on the Senate level. Because two new polls, like I said, from Quinnipiac University, and the overall average, Gravis and the two Quinnipiac polls together put Jamie Harrison only underwater by 2.3%. You can't take these plus 17 and plus 13 polls because guess when they were held? Back in January and February. The election has changed pretty significantly. And what we've seen is that not only is Graham losing support, it's that Harrison is rapidly gaining it. Because in the same poll that had him up, that had Lindsey Graham up by 17% right before this first summer poll was taken in July, Graham had 54% of the vote. He now had 48% in the most recent poll and that Gravis poll that I'm looking at. And then Jamie Harrison went from 37 to 41, which is now 48. And what we're seeing in that is that it's a tie. Essentially, I mean, it's a statistical tie based off the margin of victory for Graham at this point, and it's going to be very difficult for Graham to soar to re-election when Jamie Harrison has roughly a month and a half left of out fundraising him in terms of, around the state and nationwide, and also spending more money and being able to send out campaign ads, whatever it is. Jamie Harrison is running a very, very strong campaign, and like I said, 2014, Lindsey Graham won by 15.6%. The polls actually overestimated his margin. So if he's only up by 2.3% now, we could, in a sense, say, it's going to be a little interesting to say the least. But I think that Lindsey Graham still is the favorite to win the South Carolina Senate race. Just now, the GOP has to worry about, yet again, another southern state being added into the fray as a competitive race. Because Georgia is super competitive. They're poised to lose North Carolina. There is no Florida race for the GOPs. I guess they can thank for that. But looking at Alabama, Georgia, South Carolina, North Carolina, these are all states that the Republican Party is going to have to spend a lot more money in than they normally expected. What we've seen is that the Democratic Party has expanded their Senate map and expanded where they could possibly win. Because let's say the margin of victory for Donald Trump in South Carolina is near 8.5%. And what we see in terms of South Carolina polling data is that where Trump is ahead by 7.1%, Graham is only ahead by 2%. Which means if Trump's margin of victory narrows up before Election Day, which it very well could, because these polls typically, poll people that generally vote, likely voters, right? But this election, we're going to see more than likely voters because turnout is expected to be very high amongst minority groups. And what we're looking at is that South Carolina itself, if the margin narrows up slightly, it puts the Senate race at a huge jeopardy because this could actually be a surprise on election night. I don't think Jamie Harrison will be able to do it as it stands today, but he has a month and a half to go. And Lindsey Graham has become a very national figure. And whether there's the speculative issues about Lindsey Graham are hurting him, all of this is just generally helping Jamie Harrison. And the Democratic Party should be very thankful that they ran a strong candidate in this Senate race. Because what we saw from the Democratic Party, not only here, is that they ran very strong candidates nationwide. They ran them in Kansas with Barbara Boyer. They ran them in Arizona with Mark Kelley. They ran them in Montana with Steve Bullock. All of these candidates are very strong. Sarah Gideon, Cal Cunningham, John Ossoff. All of these candidates individually are very, very strong contenders. And Jamie Harrison has always been on that list, except we've always grouped it under, oh, it's South Carolina. Why would it be narrow now when it wasn't even narrow under Obama? Well, guess what? Times have changed. And Donald Trump is pushing away a number of Republicans, but somehow, in this universe, Lindsey Graham is doing it even worse. So, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to comment down suggestions below. Subscribe on the left if you haven't already, and check out the Instagram and Twitter. At the bottom left of the screen, there's also a Discord link for you to go ahead and join. On the screen, there's going to be a video you can watch, and then a playlist for my 2020 Senate election videos if you just want to see a couple of those other ones. And again, thank you guys again for watching. I said again twice, and I will see you all later today.